Fossil fuels provide us with almost all of the world's energy, but they will not be around forever. In fact, they're decreasing every day more and more. So if we run out by 2100, how will the world be affected and what will we do?
How much energy will we use in 2100? We will have to be more careful. We'll be using more renewable energy like solar power and wind power. People will be using solar powered cars, and the prices for renewable energy will go down and be more realistic, but the non-renewable sources will go up.
What would the world be like without fossil fuels? The livelihood of today are very dependent on fossil fuels, and without them it would be very different. It would be harder to transport and travel due to the loss of cars and engines. This is because of the jet fuel and the limited amount of gas for cars. The economy would decrease in the USA because a very high percent of the gross domestic product in the USA comes from the fossil fuels. Occupation availability would decrease as well because in the USA alone, over 9 million jobs have something to do with fossil fuels and fracking, etc. The necessities that we need every day would be harder to produce and to have because lots of things are made out of rubber and plastic, and without fossil fuels it would be very rare to have. How we produce the energy. The WWF theory is by Mark Jacobson, who's an American scientist, and this is wind, water, and sun. 50% will be wind and turbine power, 26% will be from the sun, 7% hydroelectric, and 5% will be geothermal. This will be specifically to power things like chargers and air conditioning and heating for our homes. There are some issues with it though, because there will not always be a current in the oceans and the sky or wind, so there would have to be a lot of storage in the tools that we would use. Although these are all practical because they have been made and are being used slightly all around the world. That is a geothermal plant. These are an example of solar power, and that's wind turbine and hydroelectric.
Where will the energy we will use come from? Blackouts are becoming more often and we are in need of renewable energy. The most preferred energy sources we're going to use are wind power and terrestrial solar power because we are running out of fossil.
Okay, what things are we going to lose that we use daily if fossil fuels run out? So these are just examples of the things that we use daily that are made out of fossil fuels, and it's only a tiny fraction of the endless list. These things are almost impossible to make without fossil fuels. So imagine, for example, life without plastic or rubber. Think of all the things that are made out of plastic or rubber. This classroom, for example. How many things are made out of these materials? Imagine this room without them, it would probably be empty. So we won't have any of these things if we continue to overuse fossil fuels.
What technologies will we lose if fossil fuels run out and why? These are some everyday technologies that will no longer be available or will be very rare, such as telephones, DVDs or CDs, refrigerators, tablets, and iPads. Why? Because telephones are made up of plastic and raw materials that are from oil, and they are essential to electronics. And if the oil runs out, then it will be much harder to come across plastic and rubber. This is the same with refrigerators because there is an essential lining across refrigerators that is made from rubber, and it would be very hard to use them. CDs, although they are not used as often in modern day society, they are still useful to the world, and they are also made out of plastic and oil, and without the fossil fuels it would be much harder to make CDs.
What other types of transportation would be used if we use these fossil fuels? Transportation uses the most energy produced by fossil fuels. 85% of the energy made from fossil fuels is used in road transportation alone. Rail transportation uses 6% and aviation uses 8%. The first alternative for fuel cars are fuel cell vehicles. Fuel cell cars use hydrogen fuel cells, which combine hydrogen from fuel tanks and oxygen from the air to produce electricity. They are very similar to normal cars since they don't need to be charged like electrical vehicles. They are refilled with hydrogen at fuel stations, much like how we refill cars with gas or diesel, and they produce no pollutants or CO2, and the tailpipe emission is steam. Another alternative is Another alternative are battery vehicles. They run on electrical energy. The batteries are used to store electricity, and they are charged by being plugged into a socket. They're not very fast cars. The top speed is 25 miles per hour or 40 kilometers per hour, and it travels a little over 50 miles or 80 kilometers per charge. They are perfect for short trips and not recommended for long ones. They produce absolutely no pollution, not even in the power electricity plant, and they are 2 times as efficient as gas or diesel. The next alternative is people-powered vehicles, which are like rickshaws or bicycles. And they produce absolutely no pollutions and are actually healthy for the environment. They increase personal health as well as lifespan and give a person exercise and avoid health problems like obesity or heart disease. And the fuel is food.
How will the loss of energy affect our economy? So most they affect China and India because they are the countries that produce the most fossil fuels. Although China is already making investments. Infrastructure investment is coming in the US, and it's made to make the renewable systems in homes around the country. This is a picture of a renewable system in a home that they're trying to do, and this is a picture of how the renewable sources prices are going down.
How can you prevent the loss of fossil fuels? You can use vehicles as least as you can. Just you can walk or cycle or use public transportation, and carpooling is also very great. You can keep the heat on, which is really not a problem in public. And turn off the lights when you don't need them, so when you leave the house or travel or something. And use a clothesline instead of a dryer, which is easy to go for since it's sunny all year round. And switch to hybrid or electric cars and reduce flights and reuse and recycle plastics and paper and metal and stuff like that. And install solar panels to provide you with electricity.
In conclusion, we're going to run out of fossil fuels for sure, but the more you're going to use, the faster you're going to run out. Even if you're going to run out of fossil fuels, there are still some services that are going to replace them, like wind energy and solar energy. Thank you.